Hey everybody, and welcome to You're Just Stupid.
Sorry, I'm excited, guys.
Oh my gosh, what just happened? That was horrifying. The podcast, this is the podcast that makes you smarter and stupider at the same time, and apparently also scares you. Well,
Happy
it's
belated
Halloween.
Happy belated Halloween. We're recording this.
Happy belated Halloween.
Halloween's the best holiday.
Isn't it still Day of the Dead? Or it's the second and the first,
look,
right?
I'll be honest with you, Ray. I barely have a concept of time anymore. I've worked too many days in a row. I've worked the last 11 days in a row.
Oh, well, all your ancestors are really disappointed in you that you don't know
my
that.
ancestors are really disappointed in me. And they're right to be. I am definitely the black sheep of the family.
Anyway, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Ray, a.k.a. the Penis Pumpkin. Keeping it Halloween. And then over here we have Rene, a.k.a. your mom's favorite chew toy.
It was supposed to be sex toy, Ray.
I realize that.
You know what?
And
you know what?
here
You
I
know
have
what?
Renee.
Even better. Even better. Your mom's favorite sex toy.
Guys, the worst part about it, too, is I have it written down in front of me, and I still didn't say it right.
You know what? Even better. I am your mom's favorite chew toy.
I had one job.
Hey, just real quick shout out to all the hot moms out there. If you need a chew toy at any time, I'm here and I'm available, guys.
Anyway, what are we talking about today, Renee?
I was going to say, before we hit our episode, there's something that you wanted to talk about, wasn't there, Ray? Something actually really
Oh
exciting.
my God, thank you for reminding me. You know what? I got so flustered because I messed up the chew toy sex toy thing. Anyway,
Women using me however you want.
I know that this is an audio only podcast, so you can't see me. But this would shock you if you knew this, but I'm running the Boston Marathon, which is terrifying. Yes, so it's 26.2 miles, and yes, I am aware of that. That's what everyone keeps asking
That's like
me
this
when I
many.
tell them. People are like, "Do you know how long that is?" And I'm like, "No, I just signed up for it, and I don't know how long it is." Anyway, there's going to be a link in our bios and Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff, where you can donate. I'm representing Boston Medical Center,
That's
which is
awesome.
one of the country's like best hospitals. My friend works there in the NICU, and she's running as well. Shout out to Brittany.
Shout out to Brittany.
She's the one that gave me the idea to do it. So I will have more information on that in the future. I'm looking forward to having some cool fundraising stuff.
Yeah, no, I've donated my entirety of my checking account, so $1.69. And I suggest y'all donate too.
If it's 69 cents, like, make it hilarious. Make it a good number.
Yeah, like, guys, if
$4.20.
Yeah, $4.20. Something 69. $69.
Yeah, what's the boob one?
That $88 and
yeah.
exactly $80.08 exactly. Yeah, like
yes,
donate.
exactly.
Don't donate like $5, dude. That's boring. Like if you just like donate, be like $69 and like $420.69. Now you're getting it.
Well, in reality, though, we'll accept any type of money.
Oh God, yes, please don't.
Goes towards all the hospitals.
Yeah. It's a good cause, guys.
All it doesn't go towards like the hospital, but all the programs.
It goes straight to the administrators
kitchens and that kind of stuff. Right up their nose.
Exactly. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm gonna get in trouble for saying that. That's not true.
No,
the administrators.
No, we're not. It's for a good cause, guys. Like donate. I'm gonna donate.
Cocaine for the administrators. Okay.
Well, I was just suggesting they're going to embezzle it. You went to straight drug use, Ray.
Oh my gosh, that's such a great segue to what we're talking about today, Renee.
Drug use and cocaine?
No, I don't know. I just didn't want to talk about the marathon anymore.
Yeah.
It was boring me.
the exact race you're running is already boring you. Well, the good news is I think we have a very unboring episode today. So, real quick, Ray.
Renee's been hyping this one up for a while.
I've been hyping this one up for a while because do you guys remember those Dos Equis, the most interesting man in the world, right? The older gentleman, handsome older gentleman, he's drinking beer. Well, I think this guy that we're going to talk about today is the most interesting man in the world, like straight up, like no joke. He's actor Christopher Lee, and just very, very, if you want the TLDR version, the guy who was Saruman and
what's TLDR?
Too long did not read. God damn it, Ray.
Like, I don't know. What is that, like an internet thing?
Yeah, it's the internet thing. I am 8 years older than you, and even I get the internet more than you do. Come on.
I have no
and
idea.
I had to have people explain Twitter to me like 2 weeks ago.
Have you seen the color of my hair? Anyway,
She is very
continue.
blonde. She's getting very blonde.
Yeah.
But
Christopher Lee.
So he was Saruman in the Lord of the Rings movies. He was.
That's how I know
That's how
him.
she knows him. Count Dooku in the Star Wars prequel movies, or Francisco Scaramanga in the James Bond movies. And you should know Scaramanga too, Ray.
We stayed at the Scaramanga Ranch when we were in New Mexico.
We had a blast there. Big shout out to the Scaramanga Ranch.
It was really cool.
If you're in Madrid, I hate saying that way, but Madrid, New Mexico, or nearby, I would suggest staying there. We had a blast. But
yeah, we got in on Airbnb, and the guy who owns his name is Jay, and he's a producer. He's really, really cool. We stayed in a stagecoach. It was awesome. So
yeah, and
do it.
And Ray actually legitimate words. Ray said, Renee, because you were so thoughtful this morning, I'll take care of the poop situation. Straight up real world, she said. Real words.
That's true friendship right
That's
there.
true friendship right there. Anyways, so let's talk about Christopher Lee. Like, seriously, straight up. So he, obviously well-known actor, but he legitimately had an extremely interesting life. So let's just start at the beginning where he was born. He was born on May 27th, 1922 in London.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
1922, we're going back.
Yeah, we're going way back for this guy. So his dad was Lieutenant Colonel Geoffrey Trollope Lee and served in the King's Royal Rifle Corps. I'm not going to talk too much about his dad because his parents did divorce when he was young. He still maintained contact with his dad, but even his dad died before his mom. I mean, typical men tend to die younger than women. But his mom is actually kind of more important, not only because he lived with her a lot longer, but she's also a lot more interesting and ends up playing a big part, like all her connections in his life. So she was Contessa, and yes, she was a Countess, Estelle Marie. Big thing is not only was she an Italian countess, but in fact she actually traced her lineage all the way back to Charlemagne. That'll come up way later here in the
Isn't
podcast.
Charlemagne? When was Charlemagne?
The first Holy Roman Emperor. Like,
yeah, that's a long time ago.
Well, you have to remember, the family tree in some of these royal families don't really exactly spread too far, if you know what I mean.
They look more like a wreath.
Yeah, they're more like a reef or a
got
tumbleweed than like a lively oak tree. He was born on May 27th. Real quick fun fact, and we'll talk more about this later on, but two of his best friends were actors Peter Cushing and Vincent Price. Vincent Price was...
I know Vincent Price.
And if you're a Star Wars fan, you also know Peter Cushing. Well, May 27th was the day Christopher Lee was born. Vincent Price was also born on May 27th. And what day was Peter Cushing born on? May 26th.
May 27th.
Oh, close. It would have been even more cute if they had been that way, but unfortunately not.
Yeah, his mom couldn't hold him in.
Yeah, it would have been real cute, especially because they played foils on each other a lot on the screen. We'll get way more into that here in a moment. But so not only was his wife a countess, she was apparently very beautiful. She actually got painted by multiple people and sculpted by multiple people too. So she was a very prominent, well-known, beautiful woman.
Christopher Lee's wife?
Yeah, mom.
Sorry, you said wife.
Oh, my bad.
That's okay.
Staying mom.
You're just stupid.
Yeah, I'm just stupid. What do you mean your mom can't be your wife? He first is, and as a young man, Christopher Lee was born a man. No, but as a young boy, he actually did start acting earlier on. His first role ever was actually Rumpelstiltskin. And I'm getting a lot of this information just for y'all know. It's actually from his autobiography, The Lord of Misrule, which is a cool name for an autobiography. And just in general, everything about him is cool as hell. He lived in Switzerland for a while, went to school, then he went back to London when his mom eventually married the aunt of one Ian Fleming. Do you happen to know who that is?
That sounds really familiar. I probably should know him, right?
Creator and author of the James Bond novels.
Oh, I don't care if I don't know him.
Oh, wow, dang. Just straight up dirt on his grave, Ray. My God.
Sorry. I really like Pierce Brosnan.
You know what?
I think he's really handsome.
All right, you know what? He married Pierce Brosnan. There we go. For Ray. That'll keep Ray's attention.
Wow, Christopher Lee had such an interesting life. I didn't realize.
There we go. Now she's interested. And so just a couple of things that he just accomplished in his youth. He got to meet Prince Yusupov and Grand Duke Dmitry Pavlovich as a young man. If you don't know who those are the people who killed Rasputin.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah,
significant.
exactly.
They like killed the fuck out
Yeah,
of
they
Rasputin
straight up killed the
too.
fuck out of him. They were in
They
exile.
that's like
Yeah.
a tale for another time.
Yeah,
He got
that's
killed.
Rasputin definitely could be his own episode, 100%. So he was also one of those kids, like, he did everything. He acted, he played cricket, he was apparently a very good fencer, played football, rugby, and this was straight up a line that I found on the internet. Christopher Lee was apparently beaten often for not following the rules.
By his mother?
I think more like the people like in school, like, you know, back in the day, like when you attended like high school or like I don't know, boarding school or whatever. You know, they could beat you back then. You know, like they had the paddles and stuff, and they could beat you and stuff. And apparently, yeah, Christopher Lee claims he got beaten a lot.
Too bad he didn't have his powers of Saruman the White
Right.
at the time.
Uh,
It's gonna beat the fuck
Kind
out
of
of him.
impressive too, because he's a big guy. He was 6'5" in real life.
Oh,
Yeah,
damn.
he's a big guy. Like, so that's impressive. I don't know if he was as big when he was, you know, following back then. But anyways, so he graduates from Wellington College. He studied the classics like Greek, Roman literature, antiquities, everything like that. And he was looking for a job. And he kind of farted around for a little bit, went to France, and he witnessed the last public performance of execution by guillotine just while hanging out in France.
Wow, that's a really significant thing to just stumble
Yeah,
upon.
he was in France visiting his sister, and he's like, "Oh, hey, I want to attend this." And yep, he just.
Like those things never happened to me. Like my friend Summon in England, she just stumbled upon an Eminem and Dr. Dre concert.
But did you also stumble upon said concert?
No, I just am jealous.
That's be-
And I said, you know, stumble. I would rather stumble. No, I would rather see Eminem. Eminem or the guillotine. I don't know.
Eminem getting.
I'll be thinking about that.
Eminem getting guillotine.
No, that would be horrible.
I'm just.
Oh my
I'm just
God,
doing.
don't even
I'm
say
just
it.
doing
I'm
that.
gonna
I'm just doing
cry.
that to mess with you.
Sorry, I'm getting palpitations. My watch is notifying me. Okay, continue.
So he gets a job, kind of just taking care of mail and running errands for this company called U.S. Lines. When then something kind of happens. It's called World War II. Have you heard of that, Ray?
Yes.
Have you heard of listeners? Let me know if you've heard of World War
Something
II.
happened.
It's kind of an obscure event. We may have to cover it one day. I don't know. It's kind of really obscure. Anyways, so actually his first taste of war was during the Finnish-Russian Winter War. The Finnish-Russian Winter War. So apparently a bunch of young British people go over there to volunteer. And in Christopher Lee's own words, he says that he was very lucky that he was only there about a month and he was mostly stuck for guard duty because he did not know how to ski and he really didn't know how to navigate like the alpine, you know, like all the snow and stuff because he guarantees that if he fought on the front lines, he would have died. So he goes back, joins the Home Guard, and then in 1941, his father dies. He decided that, all right, I'm going to set up my own path, and he wants to join the Royal Air Force. And he wants to be a pilot. The problem is, interesting enough, after he flies a few flights, he ends up getting disqualified. And this is one of those old-fashioned medical terms that I love. Failure.
Yeah, why do you get disqualified?
For failure of the optic nerve. He wasn't.
What is that? He's blind?
No, he's not blind, but I don't know. Just for whatever reason, like I guess probably it was his vision wasn't good enough because you know pilots have to have really, really,
Yeah.
really good vision.
Colorblind or something, like on Little Miss Sunshine.
You're Little Miss Sunshine. So basically, between that and another trainee that he was close to dying, he's like, all right, I don't really want to be a pilot anymore. So he switches to intelligence. And so he for the rest of his service in the Royal Air Force, he's part of the Royal Air Force Intelligence, and his first assignment is in Egypt as part of the North Africa campaign. And literally his squadron was running campaigns like constantly. He would say they would run up to 5 missions a day in North Africa, and basically his squad played a big part in the British invasion of Axis North Africa. Even though you think intelligence, oh, maybe he's on the back lines. No, like, there's a lot of, like, just as I was reading up, he was really, like, the base he was staying at, he almost died from an Axis bombing. He had several, like, sorties and missions, like on the front lines, fighting, like, the Italians and the Nazis in North Africa. And eventually, after they took over, the British took over North Africa, even, like, went to Malta and helped to use that as a staging ground to be the invasion of Sicily that the
Wow.
Allies did. What's also interesting is that he also, within a 1 year, I believe it was 1943, he contracted malaria 6 different times
In one
in
year?
1 year.
I didn't even know that you could
I
do
That's
that.
what I read from his autobiography.
Oh, he should have taken those malaria
He
pills. Come on,
well,
Christopher Lee, what are you doing?
I'm pretty sure back then all they had was meth. I don't think they had malaria
Yeah, they
pills.
just
Yeah.
give you like cocaine.
Here's some cocaine to pep your spirit, son. Apparently, his last bout, he also contracted pneumonia. He recovered and was ended up getting a commendation from his officers because his squad was actually getting ready to mutiny. There was just a big lack of mail, lack of news about how the war was going, and just they were tired, restless. Had been in North Africa for like a year, fighting
Is that like a common thing? It sounds like it's very
mutiny.
abnormal for that to happen. Yeah.
I don't know much about mutinies World War II, but apparently Christopher Lee himself like talked down the squad and like was given a commendation because they all respected him because he was
Oh,
one of
he's
them.
got a great voice. I would listen to
Yeah,
him.
he does have a great voice. In Italy, worked with the Gurkhas. You've ever heard of the Gurkhas?
Oh my god, I feel so stupid this episode. No.
They're some of the most
What is a
famous
Gurkha?
Indian soldiers. They carry special knives that are well known for their unit. So he's worked with in Italy. He climbed Mount Vesuvius.
It's actually pretty easy to climb, I've heard.
Oh, well, did when other people climb it, did it erupt 3 days later?
No, did that happen?
Seriously, it erupted 3 days after he climbed it.
Oh man,
Yeah.
I just tried to poo-poo Christopher
Yeah,
Lee, and he
that's
just
how
threw the poo-poo
freaking cool this
right
guy is.
back
He
at
causes
me.
like volcano. Yeah, from the grave, he's done this. That's right, Ray. Suck it. Anyways,
I know. I'm gonna not try again.
exactly. Yeah, do not put insults in this man's name.
And by the way, I don't want any like letters. Actually, I do want letters. I don't give a fuck because Renee's gonna read them. But I've never climbed Mount Vesuvius, but I heard it's really not a tough climb.
Oh, okay. I honestly don't
That's what
know.
I've heard when I've researched it, but who knows? I don't know anything.
That sounds fun though, to climb Mount Vesuvius.
Oh, I would love to do it. 100%. Absolutely.
So he almost died again. First, so he's already almost died multiple times from an Axis bombing, from malaria, pneumonia, and then when a plane was taking off, it crashed, and to avoid the crash, he tripped over a live bomb.
Wait. How did this happen?
Accident. So
Wait.
the plane was crashing. He saw it, and as to avoid like the plane crashing where he was running away, and while he was running, he tripped over a live bomb in
And
Italy.
the bomb explode?
I don't know, but let's put it this way.
But
Well, I mean, if it exploded, it would be called, hey, well, look what happened to Christopher Lee. He died in 1944.
That's just such a wicked story.
Yeah.
Like,
Like
how...
we haven't even gotten to the cool part. We haven't even gotten
Was
to
this
the
on
cool
the
part.
base?
Yeah, this is on base, yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to set it up because all of our listeners are going to be like, wait, what? And they're going to fly right over it like
Yeah,
I did.
because we
But
haven't even gotten to the cool part yet, dude.
He jumped out of the way of a plane,
Yeah.
tripped over a live bomb, and then continued.
And then he was fine. So then
Is that the good part?
yeah, we haven't gotten to the good part yet.
Oh,
So
sorry.
so I didn't know this, but apparently there was Hitler and Himmler had created plans for a Nazi Alpine fortress, like somewhere in like Germany, Switzerland area. And it turns out they didn't actually use it, but at the time the Allies didn't know it. So he was actually like given a big role in like, hey, if this Alpine fortress is real and we need to invade it, you're going to be helping lead the invasion, because he got promoted to a lieutenant, so he was an officer at this point. And now it never came to fruition, but how cool would that have been if like Christopher Lee fucking took down Nazi headquarters?
I know. So he didn't do that.
He didn't do that, but he did something really cool. After the war was over, he was appointed to the Central Registry of War Criminals and Security Suspects. So he was literally tasked with hunting down Nazis.
Did he have like a cleaver?
Yes. I like to. I don't know if he did, guys, but I'm going to say that yes, he did.
He had a tomahawk.
Yes, I'm going to say yes, he did.
And he's still in his 20s at this
Yeah,
point?
he's still in his 20s. This is like all like
Wow.
this is like mid 20s, guys. And so literally this is a quote from Christopher Lee. We were given dossiers of what they'd done and told to find them, interrogate them as much as we could, and hand them over to the appropriate authority. Real quick fun fact. In Return of the King, one of the deleted scenes that's in the extended movie, they talk about Saruman, spoiler alert if you haven't seen Return of the King, but Saruman dies getting stabbed in the back. And when Peter Jackson, the director, was filming these movies, he's like, all right, I want you to do it like this thing, and I want you to like act like this when you get stabbed and blah blah blah. And he's like, that's so unrealistic. And Peter Jackson's like, what do you mean? He goes, I've literally killed Nazis by stabbing them in the back. I know exactly what a man being stabbed in the back sounds like. And so Christopher Lee kind of directed his own scene, his own death scene in a movie.
I wonder what Peter Jackson's response was. He'd be like, yeah, cool, man.
So I bet probably what he was thinking was, hey, Christopher Lee's going to tell me how to stab someone in the back. I'm just going to shut up and listen because I'm Peter Jackson. Yeah. And Christopher Lee's cool as hell and everything. So it's 1946. He retires from the Royal Air Force as a flight lieutenant and has proudly served his country and hunted Nazis and all sorts of other cool stuff. And apparently Nazis. And apparently a very common position after the war was for people who had studied the classics like him, especially soldiers, was to teach at university. But Christopher Lee declined becoming a professor because he felt his Latin was too rusty.
Does every university teacher need to know Latin?
No, but if you're going to teach classics, to know Latin is a good idea.
What's classics?
Like, like ancient Roman literature, ancient Greek literature. Yeah.
Is that? I never knew that's called classics.
You never took in like a classics course in like college or anything?
I've never heard it be called that.
Oh wow, you're such a Philistine, Ray. My God.
I don't even know what that means. Jesus fucking Christ.
Guys, this is why she's just stupid.
I'm living in a cuckoo clock here.
So, and by the way, to give you an idea of how intelligent Christopher Lee was, he was fluent in English, Italian, French, Spanish, German, and was proficient in Swedish, Russian, Greek, and Latin.
He's like an old-timey, like, queen from the 15th century.
I was going to say he's more like a Renaissance man, but yeah, we'll call Christopher Lee a queen. Yas Queen Slay. There we go. Christopher Lee's literally rising out of his grave with his fucking lightsaber to fucking cut you down now, Ray.
He would make an awesome-ass zombie, too.
He would be
with his hands.
Well, first of all, he'd be 6'5" zombie, so...
Yeah, he's very, like, thin. If you guys don't know what he looks like, he's, like, very thin and tall and...
And he's got he's very deep voice, very long face. Yeah,
very long fingers that are like
very
creepy looking.
And he actually fenced in college too, so he would do a lot of his own sword play and action scenes as well. Because he had, seriously, like.
No, I do a lot of my own sword play.
Ray is literally laughing. Ray is laughing so hard, guys. She's actually hit a note that only dogs can hear. Incredible. So the good news is, basically for about a year, he kind of doesn't know what to do. He's trying to figure out what to do, and luckily he has lunch with his cousin Niccolo Carandini, who was a member of the Italian resistance movement. So they met during World War II and when Christopher Lee fought in Italy. Basically, he said, hey, the Carandini family is our famous actors. You should become an actor, too. You've acted before. And he's like, oh, okay. And to give you an idea how long ago this family goes, this branch of Christopher Lee's family, they were given the right to bear a coat of arms by Holy Roman Emperor Frederick Barbarossa, who fought in the Third Crusade.
Wow.
Yeah, old school.
That's really cool that it goes that far.
Yeah, it goes really
neat.
He's got like legit like noble history, like noble blood.
Does he have kids?
His
lineage lives on?
I think so. Yeah, I think they had a couple kids. I honestly didn't really look into that. Sorry.
I mean, you just did research on the guy. Yeah. I mean, I thought you'd figure out if he had kids, but I mean,
I'm not talking about Christopher Lee's kids. I don't give a shit. Well, unless they're really cool. I'm talking about the man, the myth, the legend himself.
They're cool. You know what? You're just making him roll around in his grave again because you said his kids aren't cool.
Fair enough. So basically, his cousin introduces him to people in the movie industry, like, "Hey, this is my cousin Christopher Lee. He wants to act
in Italy, right?
In Italy." Basically, he gets enrolled in a charm school, Ranks Charm School, which I couldn't quite figure out what that means exactly. But on a 7-year contract, and his first appearance in the movie was in director Terrence Young's Corridor of Mirrors. The only reason why I bring this up is because Terrence Young is a famous director because he directed 3 of the James Bond movies. And the reason why that's a big deal is, do you know who James Bond is based off of?
The first name that came to mind is Philip Seymour Hoffman.
What? What?
I'm sorry, I'm feeling a little goofy
Yeah,
today.
yeah,
Sorry.
guys, she's gone extra blonde mode on me today. Holy cow. No, God damn it, Ray. Yes, it's based off Philip Seymour Hoffman. Throw that out there, trivia internet. Our listeners, God damn. No, it's actually a combination of Ian Fleming and Christopher Lee's experiences in World War II. So yes, James Bond is legitimately partially based off Christopher Lee.
Stop. I did not think that at all. That's
Ian
so
Fleming is his
cool.
cousin by marriage, and they would talk all the time. They'd play golf together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he directed, and he's the one
And
that
he's the
wrote
one who
them.
wrote the James Bond movies, the books that
Wow.
became movies. Yeah,
I mean, I know James Bond is a badass guy. I've never seen a James Bond movie.
you've never seen a James Bond movie?
I've seen Austin Powers.
I mean, acceptable, but acceptable. He gets started within 10 years. He appears in 40 different movies. So from 1947 to 1957, getting subsequently bigger and bigger parts. And we'll talk about 1957 in a moment. That's a pretty big year for Christopher Lee in his acting career. But in the 50s, he meets a woman named Henriette von Rose in a nightclub in Stockholm, which I think is the best way to meet somebody, meet a lovely lady or a lovely gentleman. To let you know, she herself was of Swedish nobility, and her father was Count Fritz von Rosen. They were smitten.
What a name.
Mwah. That is a European noble name, Fritz von Rosen. Apparently, he did not like Mr. Lee, and he thought that his daughter dating Mr. Lee was far below her. So he kept asking all sorts of things before he would approve of them married. So among other things was he first had to delay the wedding for a whole year. Christopher Lee had to interview with multiple friends of Count Fritz von Rosen. He had to provide references. He had a private detective follow him around and investigate him. And finally, he had to get permission from King Gustav King Gustav Adolf VI of Sweden, which he did obtain to marry her.
That's a lot of hoops to jump through for a woman.
It-
She a good looking lady?
I don't know because that actually wasn't his actual wife. Not long before the
Oh.
wedding, Christopher Lee himself broke off the engagement because he really thought Henriette von Rose deserved someone better than him. And this is his words. He did not want her pitched into the disheveled world of an actor. And they had a mutual breakup.
And he went to the king for permission.
And, yeah.
I mean, couldn't you think of that before you go all the way to the king, Christopher Lee? What are you doing?
I'll be honest. I've never you think swiping left and swiping right is hard, guys. You never had to ask a freaking monarch for permission to, marry somebody. So I'd be way more impressed about that.
I mean, you don't know about our listeners. They could have
Well, okay, yeah, a lot of them
done some dabbling.
could have, guys, let us know if you've ever had to ask the king or queen of Sweden for to date permission to date anybody. I'm sure quite
Do
a
they
few.
still have
of
a
you.
king or queen there?
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know the current one because I don't give a shit about the king of Sweden or queen or any. I'm American. I don't give a shit about royalty.
Fuck the Swedish.
You know what? Oh, God damn it, Ray. Ray's gone off the rails. All our Swedish listeners, we love you. Well, I don't. I mean, sorry, crap. All right.
My step grandfather was Swedish.
You're Swedish. You look very blonde today. You look very Swedish yourself.
One right by the sun.
Fair enough. So 1957 is actually a big year for him because the movie Curse of Frankenstein comes out. Kind of real brief background. Have you ever heard of the Hammer horror movies, Ray, at all?
Only from when you talked about
Yeah.
them.
So for those of you who don't know, and some people who really into horror will know them. Not a lot of people do. There are a series of British horror movies that came out in the 50s, 60s, and 70s that most of them were low budget, but they were way ahead of their time. We're talking about blood. We're talking about nudity. We're talking about like sex and gore, and they're way ahead of their time. A lot of them. It can be seen to be a little cheesy today, but it's one of those things. They're like the old Frankenstein movies, where if you're in the right mood and you understand the context, you realize that a lot of these movies are pretty good. And Curse of Frankenstein, actually, I think is one of the best ones. Even though it's one of the first ones that really set it off, it really is one of the best ones. So Christopher Lee himself plays Frankenstein's monster, and Peter Cushing plays one of his most famous roles, Dr. Frankenstein himself. Ironically, they never really met before the movie. They had been in movies together, but never really met. And as they were interacting together, how they started getting along was by sharing Looney Tunes references with each other, because apparently they both loved Looney Tunes. So they probably, I just imagine Christopher Lee's like saying it's duck season, and Peter Cushing say it's wabbit season, and just going back and forth. And then when their friendship was really sparked, because what Christopher Lee says, he stormed into Cushing's dressing room and complained that I've got no lines, and Peter Cushing kindly responded, "You're lucky, I've read the script." And after that, they apparently became friends, and they were lifelong friends, and it helps too because they were in a lot of different movies together, especially for Hammer. I want to say they were in 22 total films together, and this was the first of 3 films in a row where Christopher Lee strangles Peter Cushing. That's a friendship right there, right? You know, if you
3 times,
three
you can
times,
strangle me 3 times, Christopher.
I
Now
know.
one more.
I mean, Ray, how would you describe our friendship? Would you think that? How many times have you wanted
I
to
would
strangle
strangle
me?
you.
Would you strangle me?
But
3
then
times?
I'd be like, God, this neck is so thick.
How
would anyone strangle it?
I have a
Oh
fat
my
fucking
gosh.
neck. I am not proud of it. I'm trying to work on
I could
it.
take Andre the Giant's hands and try to strangle, and it wouldn't work. He'd be like, "Oh my God, my forearms are exhausted. All this strangling." Rene would be sitting there eating a bag of chips while he's trying to get strangled.
Check this shit out.
Do you have chips right there? It's wheat. It's a wheat thin.
It's a wheat thin,
Close.
but I'm impressed
fine.
you could figure out what it was.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about wheat thins when we were in New Mexico,
No.
talking them up like they were the best thing ever.
They are. Anyways,
Anyway,
hold on, let me finish my wheat thin real quick.
the House of Horrors, Horror House,
Hammer horror. God damn.
Hammer Horror.
Hammer horror. So
Horror.
they do star in a lot of movies together. Most famous, they were in several Frankenstein movies together. I'll get just in a moment to the Dracula movies because Christopher Lee might
yes.
be legitimately the most famous person to ever play Dracula.
Was he like the OG Jack
No,
Dracula?
no. That was not Boris Karloff. Oh my god, I can't think of his name. The guy who played the Universal Dracula. Hold on, I gotta look this up. No, because
That's okay.
because Dracula in the 1930s. Bela Lugosi. No, Bela Lugosi.
Okay, because I feel like I've seen that
Yeah,
one.
Bela Lugosi's his portrayal is probably the most famous portrayal of Dracula. But like Bela Lugosi's like what we think of like funny Dracula, like blah blah, and wearing the cape and like the strong Hungarian accent, over the top theatrical. Versus Christopher Lee was like the big brooding, menacing, very animalistic Dracula. Like
Almost a little sexy.
yeah,
too, right?
actually, I would say he was a combination of like Dracula was more over the top, brooding, and more like very like intense, animalistic, sexy. Like he women would bite him, and he'd bite women, they'd moan, or he'd maul men to death, type of thing. And so that's kind of like, and a lot of they think the idea of that vampires are sexy because if you read the original Count Dracula, he's not a very good looking guy, and Bela Lugosi's appearance, and famous is also, it's more of like, oh, my kid wants to dress up as Dracula this Halloween, not like versus Lee's.
Yeah, he's like a clown.
Yeah, exactly.
In the original one.
Yeah, versus Lee's is more like, oh, here's this big 6'5" guy who can completely overwhelm a woman he wants to bite and drain her blood, and she moans passionately, type of thing.
Like dark and mysterious.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Yeah.
So kind of another couple of interesting things. In 1956, I believe, he appeared in a movie called Corridors of Blood. It's most famous because he worked opposite Boris Karloff, who in his most famous role was also Frankenstein.
They should have each dressed like their Frankenstein characters and fought.
Great. Now that's the movie I want to see. Frankenstein versus Frankenstein.
You would watch
I
it.
would
You would watch
I'd
it.
watch it. Hell yeah, I'd watch it. I'd go watch it in theaters. I'd support the shit out of that. Boris Karloff, Christopher Lee, Frank versus Stein. We're working on the title. Other famous Hammer roles before we get to Dracula, he played the Mummy Karras in the 1959 version of the Mummy. So he was also the Mummy. So he was Frankenstein's monster, he was Dracula, and the Mummy.
Wow, he's getting all of them.
He was also Rasputin the Mad Monk in a role.
Wow. Well, Rasputin was very tall again.
Yeah, exactly. He also played Sherlock Holmes and Mycroft Holmes, his brother. He was actually excited to play those roles because if you kind of listen to a lot of these roles that I've talked about, both that he's already played and that he's going to play, he got typecast as a villain a lot. 6'5", big brooding, deep voice, and he was real good at these intense looks on his faces. So he was always like made out to be the villain. And so like I said, he really liked playing the Holmes roles because he got to get away from that a little bit.
So he didn't love the whole villain
Well,
thing?
I mean, at the same time, it's one of those things where, it's like most actors, he didn't mind being a villain, and he knew that was his bread and butter, but, you like to be, play
Mix it
a
up a
mixed
little
little bit. And that's actually a perfect segue into Dracula, because he was Dracula 10 times on film, 7 times for Hammer alone.
Wow, that's a lot of Dracula
Yeah,
movies.
that was a lot of Dracula movies. In fact, there used to be a rule in interviews when you interview Christopher Lee, like they would say, guys, you can talk to him about anything except Dracula, because after a while he really come to hate playing Dracula. And
Just was so sick of it.
so basically, to kind of give you an idea, so in the second Dracula movie he stars in, it's called Dracula Prince of Darkness. There's kind of a debate on why he had no lines in the movie. According to Lee, he said that the dialogue written was so poor, he thought it would be better to just have no lines and just go off his body language and facial expressions, which Christopher Lee had some
I
great
can see
ones.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the screenwriter Jimmy Sangster claims that he actually originally wrote the script that way. I don't know what the real truth is, but there's a lot of times in movie trivia you'll hear like, oh, Christopher Lee played many of his Dracula movies with minimal to no dialogue because he always felt the scripts were, as far as the dialogue, were really poorly written. And so, like I said, I do love these names of these movies, these Hammer horror movies. So these are the names of all his Dracula movies.
Rattle them off for me.
Horror of Dracula, Dracula Prince of Darkness, Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, Taste the Blood of Dracula, Scars of Dracula, Dracula AD 1972, where yes, Dracula goes to 1972, and then finally the public domain one, The Satanic Rites of Dracula.
Those are okay.
Okay.
They seem very appropriate for the time.
Yeah, true. I just think they're corny, and I love how corny they
Oh,
are.
they're wicked
Taste
corny.
the blood of Dracula, the satanic
Anything
rites
in that
of Dracula.
time period was corny.
Yeah.
Everything in that time period was corny, but we love it.
You're corny. Anyways.
I don't know. I am.
Basically, part of it was because Lee explained later on, he felt that he was blackmailed in playing the Dracula. Because every time Hammer's like, hey, we got a new Dracula movie, he'd be like, I don't want to play Dracula anymore. And he basically said that, well, if you don't play Dracula, these are some of our biggest money-making movies. You're going to put all these people out of work. They won't be able to make money off of being in the movie. We won't make money, and that we'll all go out of business. And they wouldn't even pay him his rate, too. He's like, look, we can't afford a lot. We're Hammer. We don't have a lot of money. And just he felt each movie was more and more about just how do we bring back Dracula, and just Dracula just goes around biting people and sucking their blood. He didn't feel like there was much for him to do. He felt
Right.
basically, so from a book called John Landis' Monsters of the Movies, 100 Years of Cinematic Nightmares, Christopher Lee explained that the process went like this. He goes, the telephone would ring and my agent would say, Jimmy Carreras, who is the president of Hammer Films, is on the phone and he's got another Dracula picture. And I would say, forget it. I don't want to do another one. I'd get a call from Jimmy Carreras on a stereo saying, what's all this about? Jim, I don't want to do it, and I don't have to do it. Jim would say, no, you have to do it. Well, why? Because I've already sold it to the American distributor that you're playing the part. People want to see you as Dracula. You're going to look at all the money that you're going to put us out of. And he basically said he felt it was like emotional blackmail. Another famous role that he would play was Fu Manchu. Have you ever heard of these?
Yeah, I know, like, the mustache.
The mustache is based off the character.
And I do have to say, I watched a little bit of the Christopher Lee stuff on YouTube yesterday, and I came across the Fu Manchu, and I watched a little like clip from it, and he really looks Asian.
It's so he does do yellowface. So these movies aren't the most PC anymore, but yeah, and actually,
Is that what it's called? Is that
yellowface? Yeah, like blackface. Yeah.
Why do we call them yellow?
Old,
This is too much for this podcast.
Old timey stereotyping and racism, Ray. That's why.
That doesn't make any sense.
You never heard of like Yellow Peril or Yellow Menace or anything like it's.
No,
It's
I've heard of yellow fever.
well, because that's the actual real thing, and you have to get vaccinated for it. No, but yellow is like an old term for Asian people. It's not very PC, but yeah.
No, it doesn't sound it.
It's not.
Sounds incredibly racist.
Exactly. Well, then these movies, the first one I've seen a little bit of it. It seemed okay. What I heard is they got subsequently worse. In fact, the fifth and last movie, Castle of Fu Manchu, is so bad it became a Mystery Science Theater episode, and it's widely believed to be one of the worst movies that Mystery Science Theater 3000 has ever made fun of. And though,
Which is really saying
which
something.
is really saying something. Though I will say, a lot of people say Christopher Lee is probably the only good part in it because he knows the part. So, and this is also what Christopher Lee said about the Fu Manchu movies. The first one should have been the last one, as it was the only good one.
Well, he's honest.
He's honest. So, you want to hear about a movie he started in 1970?
Yes.
It's called Eugenie, and it's he basically or Eugene. He started as a favor for producer Harry Allen Towers.
Hold on.
What?
What's the name of the movie?
Eugenie. Eugenie. I don't fucking know.
Does he play a genie?
No, but the movie itself is going to be way more interesting in a moment. In fact, I'll let Christopher Lee describe it. Basically,
Sure.
I had no idea this was what it was when I agreed to it. I was told it was about the Marquee de Sade. I flew out to Spain for one day's work playing the part of a narrator. I had to wear a crimson dinner jacket. There were lots of people behind me. They all had their clothes on. They didn't seem to be anything particular on stage. A friend said, "Do you know you're in a film in Old Compton Street?" In those days, those was where the Macintosh Brigade watched their films. Very funny, I said. So I crept along there, heavily disguised in dark glasses scarf, and found the cinema, and there was my name. I was furious. There was a huge row. When I left Spain that day, everyone behind me had taken their clothes off. So Christopher Lee inadvertently started in a softcore pornography. Straight up. So his scenes were shot, and they were edited later on into sex scenes.
I could one up that story.
Oh, how so, Ray?
My grandma listens to this, so we're good. Just kidding, Grandma.
Just kidding, Grandma.
Just kidding, Linda.
Just kidding, Linda. Yeah, we don't need to know Ray and what she did to pay for school.
Drugs.
So straight up drugs. And so later on, like literally during when he was recording some of his narration, he had no idea there was a nude woman behind him because there was a drapery swirled all over her. Anytime he'd turn around and look, he would just see this drapery, this woman in a drapery, not actually the fact that she was naked. In 1972, he went to produce his only film he ever produced. It's called Nothing But the Night. He ended up never producing another movie because he did not like producing.
Good for him.
Yeah.
You try it, you don't like it, don't continue.
So, exactly, nothing wrong with that. But hey, he dabbled. So in 1973, he made, 1973 was a very interesting year for him. He made his least favorite movie and one of his favorite movies of all time. Least favorite being Satanic Rites of Dracula. Most favorite being The Wicker Man. And
Is the Satanic Rites of Dracula? That's another
the Dracula,
the horror,
the horror
Hammer
movies.
horror.
Yeah.
I don't know why I can't remember that Hammer horror.
Yeah, and
what was the second one?
The
What was
Wicker
his
Man,
favorite?
the 1973 Wicker Man.
Yes, I watched parts of that.
What did you think of that, Ray? What did you think of it?
So Renee sent me basically 40 minutes worth of clips from that movie, and I was really confused, and I still kind of am on whether it was a comedy or what, or it was just super cheesy, and then it was also kind of scary too, and also Christopher Lee's hair was the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Well, we've seen worse hair in a movie together, Ray.
Have we?
The Fanatic?
Oh, yeah.
We definitely did.
Oh, yeah. Guys, if you haven't seen The Fanatic with John Travolta, I would highly recommend it. It's a good watch for the whole fam.
It's a great comedy. The only problem is I don't think it was ever meant to be a comedy.
But, yeah, I could see, how it was, kind of good back then with, it's basically a culty kind of movie.
So the idea was, it is actually it's meant to be a subversion of a lot of the Hammer horror movies. So a lot of the Hammer horror movies had a lot of nudity and gore and violence into it, versus this was basically he plays a cult leader in the movie, and a lot of the violence is implied and more psychological. Like the movie, a lot more of the movie has to deal with very minimal gore, very minimal violence, and a lot more psychological and messing with you. And honestly, I think the movie is very good. I haven't been able to watch all of the movie because it's kind of hard to find without having to physically buy a physical copy. But there's definitely the ending hit hard for me. I don't know if you ever got to see the ending, Ray, but the ending hit real hard and it's pretty disturbing.
I don't know if the ending was in that movie.
It may not have. I won't spoil this one because even though yes, it's a really old one, I would suggest seeking out, especially if you're really a horror.
The bees. Nick Cage did a great job.
I love Nick Cage. That movie was not good, though. I
I
love
hate when people say Nick Cage.
Nicholas.
Nicholas Cage.
Okay.
I don't know. Nick Cage just makes me cringe.
Okay, I love Nicolas Cage. All right, fine, cringe. I love Nicolas Cage. He's one of my favorite actors because he gives it all. And that movie is not very good, but Nicolas Cage makes that movie watchable because he punches a woman in a bear costume and not the bees. You know, funny enough, that's actually a deleted scene from that movie. The Nicolas Cage version is don't. I mean, if you want to watch a over the top Nicolas Cage performance, it's a great one, but the movie itself's not very good. But anyways,
Yeah, so I mean, it was all right. I mean, you could tell Christopher Lee did a good
yeah,
job.
he did a
with
good
the
job,
movie.
and he liked the movie so much, he actually paid out of his own pocket to do a press tour in America. He literally would just go around on like public access shows and be like, "Hey, go see my new movie, Wicker Man." It was a British horror movie. 74 was another big year for him. That's the year he played Francisco Scaramanga in The Man with the Golden Gun. So kind of quick background. They always wanted Christopher Lee as a Bond villain. In fact, Ian Fleming originally wanted him to play Dr. No, the first ever Bond villain. But by the time Ian Fleming got to get his input, they already chose the actor who played Dr. No in it. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. And he loved being a Bond villain. He thought it was fantastic. He really enjoyed playing it. And he really made the character more of his own. He tried to make him a dark foil to James Bond. And definitely I would say Christopher Lee's definitely one of the best things about The Man with the Golden Gun. That one's an okay film. But his role as Scaramanga is generally considered to be one of the decent to good Bond villains. Funny enough, after he acted with Roger Moore, who was James Bond at the time, they became friends.
Wow. So the person that James Bond was based off of is friends with the guy playing
James Bond. Yeah, exactly. Well said, Ray. Thank you. Thank you. I was going to say just a couple of fun facts about the movie. So he really liked the Golden Gun of the movie, The Man with the Golden Gun. Unfortunately, and he was going to fly to Johnny Carson to appear on Johnny Carson to promote the film, and he got the Golden Gun confiscated by U.S. Customs because he carried it with him. He also spoke Swedish because apparently there's a lot of Swedish actors, so he spoke Swedish to all the Swedish actors to work on his Swedish. And then one more fun fact about the movie: they was going to be filming in a cave full of bats, and a bunch of bats flew out. And Roger Moore turned to Christopher Lee and said, "Master, they are yours to command." And even though Lee didn't like necessarily being Dracula, he did laugh at the joke. He said.
I saw a couple clips from a role that he did where he played like the Muslim Indian.
Yes, that is actually his favorite role. We'll jump to that real quick. Where he played Muhammad Ali Jinnah. He considers that his best performance in the 1980 movie
which
Jinnah.
wouldn't be very PC, right?
It wouldn't
today.
be, and a lot.
Which they made him a little bit darker because Christopher
Yeah.
Lee's white. Everyone, he's
a white guy.
And this guy that he's playing is an Indian
Pakistan.
man from India.
Pakistani.
I thought it was when they split, though, right? Isn't that what it's about?
Yeah.
When Pakistan and India split?
Yeah, he played a guy named Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and the movie is
So he's-
called Jinnah.
Technically both. He's technically Indian and
Yeah,
Pakistani, right?
right. Well,
Anyway, I don't know. Please don't be mad at me, guys.
yeah,
if I got that
great. If Ray just launched a bunch of nuclear missiles, we apologize, guys.
But I
Congratulations,
anyway,
Ray. You're
with
the
that.
modern day Helen of Troy. You've launched 1,000. Instead of launching 1,000 ships, you launched 1,000 missiles. Good job. Take the
I don't
compliment.
mind being Helen. I'll take it. I'm like Anne Boleyn.
Exactly. So that he actually considered Jinnah his best role ever. And he thought if people would ask him like, "Oh, what is your favorite movie you've done, or what is your best role?" and he would say Muhammad Ali Jinnah. So actually, good thing you brought that up because straight up he did really love that role. Two real quick things. So after he had obviously been acting in England this whole time, he started to start moving to America to get more variety of roles. In fact, one of the first things he did when he moved to America is he hosted Saturday Night Live in 1978. So he's hosted SNL also.
That's great.
And then real quick before I get to his most famous roles, I do want to talk about the list of movies that he turned down. So in 1975, he turned down a role in Tommy that went to Jack Nicholson, which that's kind of interesting, but these are the more interesting roles he turned down.
Tommy, like the pinball wizard?
No, the movie is called Tommy. That one I've never seen, but they get way more interesting. So in 1970,
God, I hope so.
in 1977, he turns down the role of Grand Moff Tarkin in Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope. But basically, that role ended up going to his good friend.
Wow.
Shut up, Ray. That role ended up going to his good friend Peter Cushing instead, which I thought that was neat. He also turned down the role of Dr. Loomis, Samuel Loomis, in the Halloween movies. The guy who's constantly chasing after Michael Myers in all those movies.
I just remember Jamie Lee Curtis.
Right. So basically, the third most important person, Jamie Lee Curtis is, who he's chasing after.
Yeah.
Michael Myers chasing after her, and Dr. Samuel Loomis is chasing after him. And he even says that's probably the biggest regret of his career because he enjoyed at least the first couple of Halloween movies. And
It's a great franchise.
it is. The first two are really good. Part 4 is really good. Part 5, and I actually have never seen Part 3, but I need to remember that.
I saw the last two. They were...
Yeah, and then the 2018 one I liked, and I haven't seen Kills or Ends because I haven't heard good things. And
I saw Kills and Ends.
how were they?
They were all right. The way that it ended, like they completely like ended the franchise, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just the ending was just a little bit over the top.
Got you.
Yeah.
And then his other most famous role that he turned down was as Dr. Barry Romack in Airplane, who famously went to
Oh,
Leslie
no.
Nielsen. And see, the idea was, I'm glad you finally got one that resonated with you.
I love Airplane.
Airplane's a really good movie. But so, do you know anything about Leslie Nielsen at all?
No.
He actually legitimately was a very serious actor. Dramas, romances, very serious. He never did comedy until Airplane. And they purposely casted him because he was a well-known drama actor. They thought it'd be funny to have this very serious, very serious actor say all these like goofy lines and stuff. And turns out he's like, wow, I really love comedy. And then he ended up doing Police Story and the Naked Gun movies and the scary movies and blah, blah, blah. And that's where his career...
That really just turned his career.
Exactly. And so imagine if...
And for people that don't know, Airplane is like the first spoof movie.
It's like...
Which I'm sure it wasn't the first.
No,
like,
but it was the first one to do it really well. If it wasn't the
It
first...
did a good job.
It's kind of like how Halloween is the first slasher movie. It's not the first slasher movie, but it's the first really good slasher movie. Like, really well known. Like, so next up, I wanted to talk about Lord of the Rings. Straight up, Christopher Lee was a giant Lord of the Rings fan. Couple fun facts. He read the entire The Hobbit and the entire trilogy at least once a year. And on top of that,
Wow.
yeah, he loved these books. And on top of that, he's the only cast member of the Lord of the Rings movies to actually have met J.R.R. Tolkien.
Wow. Did he meet him when he was serving in the war?
I don't know when he met him, but he met Tolkien. Yeah.
Wow, that is so cool.
Yeah. So his actual dream role, like you said, if there was one role you wanted to play, was Gandalf. He wanted to be Gandalf. He thought the character was awesome, but unfortunately, by the time the movies came around, he was already like 80, and he realized, ooh, I don't think I have the strength and stamina because being Gandalf required riding horses and fighting and other stuff.
Was he that old?
Yeah, he was 80.
Wow.
Yeah, when these movies were made. Because he had petitioned Peter Jackson, like, I want to be Gandalf. And Peter Jackson's like, yeah, I want to have you in these movies. He's like, well, you know what? I think I'd be better off being Saruman because I can still... And so who was he was the first person cast in the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Wow, so they like knew it was going to be...
Yeah, because he was petitioning Peter Jackson, like, I want to be in this movie, like... So, and he's truly a Lord of the Rings fanboy. He would actually go to makeup and tell, like, the makeup artist, like, hey, this is what I think the orc should look like. This is what he really was that into it. He legitimately was way into it. Other fun fact, he is one of 2 Bond villains in the Lord of the Rings movie. Sean Bean was also in the 006.
Boromir.
The Boromir was 006 in GoldenEye. He is also one of 2 actors to be in both Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. The other one being Andy Serkis, who played the... I can't remember his name. The guy who took over for Palpatine in episode 7 and 8. I can't remember his name right now.
I don't know. I can't help
I'll be
you with
honest,
that
the
one.
sequel trilogy, I'm not much of a fan of. Anyways, so he generally enjoyed playing Saruman and really loved it. So interestingly enough, though, he actually had a pretty bad injury where he almost severed 2 fingers on his left hand, and they always would shoot to avoid his left hand in the frame because apparently his fingers would look all gnarly, or he would have his robe like over his hand so you couldn't see his left hand. A good thing though is that he eventually became good friends with Gandalf's actor Ian McKellen, because apparently he becomes
Sir Ian McKellen.
So by the way, this is also Sir Roger Moore, Sir Christopher Lee, Sir Ian McKellen. I apologize.
Wait, are they all sirs?
Seriously, they've
Oh,
they've
okay.
all been
Continue.
they've
All right,
they've all
sorry.
been knighted.
I did
yeah.
not realize. I didn't know.
Speak some goddamn respect on these people's names, Ray.
RESPSPT.
Correct.
Find out what it means to me.
He also appeared as Count Dooku in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, so he got his time in Star Wars too. Because literally, he actually straight up said that when they asked him, like, why did you accept the role as Count Dooku / Darth Tyrannus, he literally said in his autobiography, you do not turn down Star Wars unless you're Harrison Ford and have already done it 3 times. And in fact, in the prequels, while filming it, he ended up becoming good friends with George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars. And so basically, you could say, like, literally in all these movies, Christopher Lee started in this movie and became good friends with this person. Because apparently,
You just know that he's a nice guy.
He's a nice-
right?
and-
He's becoming friends with everyone.
and every single time you hear people talk about him, he's extremely well read. He's extremely well versed. He's well spoken. He's got that deep voice. Very kind gentleman. Very. I know part of the reason why he was knighted was not just because he's an actor, but because of his charitable works and stuff like that. Just a very kind, friendly man. And then in 2005, he released his first metal album.
Wow,
First
that
metal
late-
single.
that late in his
Yeah,
life?
so he was 87. Sorry, his first single, which is called "The Magic of the Wizard's Dream," and his first metal album was actually in 2010. So he was 88 when he released his first metal album.
What is up with all the people that are in their mid 40s and can't do anything? And this guy is 88 fucking
and
years old.
he releases his first metal album.
That's badass.
Yeah, like not even like, because apparently he was legitimately a big fan of like multiple metal bands and would like be like backup vocalist for multiple bands. Apparently he's a huge fan of the band called Rhapsody, who ended up doing the instrumentals for his 2 albums. The first one's called Charlemagne by the Sword and the Cross, and the second one is called Charlemagne, the Omens of Death. He released that one at 91.
Wow. How old was he when he died? Oh, am I jumping the gun?
We can talk about, I believe he was 92, 93. Shortly after celebrating his 93rd birthday, he died of heart failure. Yeah. And he also had only one wife. She was a Danish painter that he met, and they were married literally the rest of their lives.
Did he need to get permission from the King of Denmark?
I'm going to say yes. Because
Yeah, so I listened to one of his albums. I don't remember if it was which Charlemagne one it was.
the first one, most likely.
What did you think of it?
I thought it was neat, but to me, it was very, very different than what I was expecting in general, because it's kind of what they call more like symphonic metal. So imagine like a man singing like operatically,
Bellowing.
singing operatically while like metal like
Instrumentals.
are in the background.
The instrumentals I thought were great. I don't think his singing was necessarily bad. It just wasn't my
It was like
my thing.
It was one of those things where I could see it not being everyone's cup of tea. In fairness, it's not something
I would listen to it while I was riding a horse into battle.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that, like, if you are a ancient Frank riding into the Crusades to fight the infidels, I would think it'd be good to listen to. Yeah, he's straight up, and he won multiple awards. He was honored with the Spirit of Hammer Award at the 2010 Metal Hammer Golden Gods Award ceremony. And in fact, he actually wrote a song called Jingle Hell, which is straight up him singing Jingle Bells, but he substitutes the word bell for hells and makes the lyrics a little more metal, and it actually charted in the Billboard Top 100 at number 22. Thus, he became the second oldest living performer to ever enter the Billboard Top 100.
Do you know who the first oldest was?
I don't give a shit about them. They're not Christopher Lee. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Christopher Lee,
Christopher Lee,
Nazi hunter, actor, villain, metal artist guy, musician thing. Yeah,
wizard.
He's a real wizard, Harry.
Yeah, guys, like, go look up a picture of him and then maybe go watch Lord of the Rings.
Go watch Lord of the Rings. Go watch.
It's a great movie.
All 3 of them are great movies.
No, it's not nerdy. There's a lot of sexy men and dwarves in it.
Ray has a thing for dwarves.
They're the perfect height.
You better not edit that part out at all.
I'm not going to edit it out. Hi, Grandma.
Hi.
Hey, Linda.
Hi, Linda. Hi, Ray's grandma. I hope
All
you're
right,
doing well.
I'm stopping this one.
No, you're not, because I want to tell everyone that,
Oh.
hey, guys, keep following us on Instagram and Twitter at YJS Podcast. Go to our YouTube, the official You're Just Stupid podcast channel. Follow us on Facebook, also at You're Just Stupid Podcast. Check us out on Spotify. Check us out on YouTube. Working on, also out on iHeart, and I'm working on Apple Podcasts as well. So like, subscribe, donate to Ray's charity fund, follow us on all the social media, and we do. Ray will tweet you, will treat you like how her dwarf men treat her.
Oh, no, that's disgusting.
Bye.